What would you do if the only sound on your morning run was a cry leaking out of a trash bag on the side of a foggy Oregon road? Not one bag, but three, each of them moving in a way that made your chest go tight. That's how it happened to Logan Mercer, a Marine who'd already sworn once in his life that no one gets left behind, and he wasn't about to let that promise die in the rain. He wasn't chasing a miracle that morning, but when he cut the first knot and a trembling paw slid into his hands, he realized the battle in front of him was one only he could fight. You know what I mean? There are moments that split your life into before and after, and this was one of them. The morning had that damp quiet that only the Oregon coast knows how to make. A soft drizzle threading itself through cedar trees, the metallic bite of salt in the air, gulls drawing lazy white arcs overhead. Logan had risen before dawn because sleep had become a stranger, routine the only thing that still held. He was 35, tall, built more for endurance than show, the kind of man you might pass at the hardware store without guessing the miles of war stitched into his skin. His face bore the sharp geometry of nights too long, a scar near his temple thin as a thread, hands squared and scarred from years of both battle and repair. People in town knew him as polite but distant, not unfriendly, just a man who didn't invite questions. Afghanistan had carved a crater in him, and he'd simply learned to landscape around it. That morning he took his usual run along the river path, hoodie pulled tight, shoes splitting at the seams, rain prickling his cheeks. Breath, step, breath, step. The rhythm was his metronome. 3/4 of a mile from his cabin, near an old pullout swallowed by blackberry vines, something shifted. Not the temperature, not the fog, but the air itself, like a note gone flat. He slowed, listened. Then he saw them. 3 black shapes hunkered at the roadside, slick and sagging. From 20 feet, they could have been trash bags. From 10, they were wrong. He crouched. The smell hit him first, sharp, chemical, cruel. He pressed a hand against one bag. Heat where there should have been cold. It twitched. Without hesitation, he pulled his folding knife, cut the knot, and the bag fell open like a held breath. Out slid a German shepherd, ribs like piano keys, foam flecking his muzzle, eyes enormous and desperate. Logan whispered, "I've got you." Because sometimes you say words more for yourself than for anyone else. He pulled the dog free, cradled the weight, heavier than it looked, but nothing compared to the weight of losing him. The second bag moved, a Doberman, young, trembling so violently it looked like her body didn't know which direction to collapse. Her coat was dull with grime, her eyes dark and searching for something not to fear. Logan eased her out too, covering her with his jacket. The third bag didn't move at all. For a selfish second, he hoped it was empty. It wasn't. Inside lay a Rottweiler, chest broad but body reduced by weeks of neglect, gums pale, breath shallow, eyes opening just enough to meet his and then slide away. 3 different dogs, 3 different lives, discarded the same way. That's when a voice rose in his head, the voice of his old sergeant. No one left behind. It echoed through the rain. Steadying him, he carried them one by one to his truck parked down the road, the drizzle needling his face, his breath ragged but determined. The shepherd first, then the Doberman, then the Rottweiler whose massive head sagged against his chest like a prayer. He loaded them into the truck and drove toward town, heater wheezing, windshield wipers slapping in nervous rhythm. By the time he pulled into the veterinary clinic, he already knew this wasn't about saving pets. It was about proving that even discarded lives deserved a second chance. Inside the clinic, the air was antiseptic and urgent. Kara, a young tech with freckles and a glitter pen name tag, took one look and shouted for Dr. Emily Hartman. Emily came out like a storm in human form, slate gray scrubs, hair blunt at the jaw, eyes steady as steel. She didn't waste words. "How long?" she asked. 20 minutes, Logan replied. Bags, chemical smell, all 3 still breathing. She nodded once and went to work, calling for charcoal, for kits, oxygen. What followed was chaos choreographed into hope. Emily and her team decontaminated the dogs, flushed their systems, forced antidotes, monitored hearts that beat like broken drums. Logan didn't leave. He held pause, steadied masks, whispered, "Stay with me," over and over until the words became a rope. When the Rottweiler's heart monitor flatlined for a terrifying minute, Logan felt the old battlefield rip open inside him. But Emily pushed. Kara prayed with her hands on oxygen lines. Nate the tech fumbled, then unfroze, and together they pulled the dog back. A messy rhythm returned, but it was life. That was the first victory. The days that followed were quieter, but no less important. The shepherd, Rex, regained his strength first, his eyes warming into trust. The Doberman, Shadow, was skittish, waking at every sound. But one night she crawled into Logan's lap, nose tucked into his elbow, and something shifted in both of them. The Rottweiler, Titan, took the longest. He fought through poisons and nightmares alike. But when he finally stood on his own, he bowed low in the yard one afternoon, a play bow, and the whole town cheered like it was Independence Day. Because here's the twist most people don't expect. Logan wasn't the only one fighting for them. The town rallied. A baker brought rolls so Logan would remember to eat. The hardware store owner donated pipes for a training yard. A retired teacher folded blankets as if each crease carried dignity. Even a little girl, June, left a note at his cabin door with crayon drawings of 3 dogs and the words, "Thank you for saving them." Sometimes heroes are just people who decide not to look away. And when the investigation widened, when evidence tied those dogs to a warehouse full of cages and chemicals, it wasn't just about 3 lives anymore. It was about stopping something monstrous. Logan gathered samples, worked with animal control, stood in court where slick lawyers tried to spin cruelty into coincidence. And when asked on the stand what he thought he was looking at that morning, he didn't give a speech. He just said, "They're not trash. They're family." And in that quiet sentence, the jury leaned forward, because truth has a way of cutting sharper than any knife. By the time the trial ended, the guilty were convicted, the dogs had a home, and the town had built something bigger than rescue. A sanctuary rose on Logan's Bluff, kennels and yards where broken animals and broken people could find each other and stitch themselves whole. They called it Harbor of Hope, a place where no one is left behind. Not dogs, not veterans, not kids who need to learn the world can still be kind. And maybe that's where the story should end, with dogs running free, townsfolk smiling, a Marine finally finding peace. But life doesn't tie itself that neatly, does it? One night, as the stove crackled and rain ticked against the cabin window, Logan woke from a nightmare of fire and gravel, chest heaving, hands clenched. Before panic swallowed him whole, Rex leapt onto the cot, Shadow pressed against his arm. Titan stationed himself by the door, silent and solid. Together, they pulled him back. And in that moment, he realized the oath wasn't just about saving them. It was about them saving him too. Oh, now I'll leave you with this. What would you have done running down that foggy road, hearing those cries from bags meant for trash? Would you have opened them, carried that weight, fought that fight? Or would you have kept running, pretending you didn't hear? Tell me in the comments, because stories like this aren't just about dogs or Marines. They're about us, about whether we choose to see family where others see waste. And if you believe no one, human or animal, should ever be left behind, share this story, because second chances don't happen unless somebody chooses to give them.